Okay, so we have Descartes, right? Rene Descartes. Um, Very influential philosopher. He is often called the father of modern philosophy, right? The father of modern philosophy. So ancient philosophy was around. A lot of people were thinking that's truth. Of course, Renaissance humanists didn't like that, right? So I guess Descartes is the point at which we like to point and say, here are new philosophers that propose their own new ideas, right? Separate from the ancient Greeks. So I guess it's modern philosophy. Anyway, very smart guy. Very, very smart guy. He, however, he studied philosophy, theology, all that sort of stuff, but he constantly had a problem. He always had doubts about everything he learned and everything he studied. He always had these doubts. So what's really truth, right? What is really true? If I doubt it, doesn't that mean it can't be true? So he was searching for something that he could be absolutely sure about and have no doubt of, right? That's what he was searching for the beginning of his philosophy. And while he's searching for this truth, once again, an indication of how smart he was just laying in his room watching a fly flying around the room. Instead of squatting it and being irritated by it like a normal person, he realized, and he invented analytic geometry. He realized, using 3 points, I could describe the position of that fly wherever it goes in the room using these three points. Got to be a smart guy to do that. So once again, yeah, just a smart guy. But so he doubted everything. So while he's trying to figure out what he cannot doubt, he eventually comes to realize, well, if I'm okay, I doubt. Doubting, well, if I'm doubting, I'm thinking. I'm a thinker. So someone has to be doing the doubting. So I think, and if I think, I must exist. I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum in Latin, right? I think, therefore I am. That's the beginning of his philosophy, right? And probably you've heard of that phrase, right? Famous phrase, I think, therefore I am. So that's the beginning of his philosophy. He was absolutely sure about that. He had no doubts of it. Where he goes next, I don't know how he got there. So the next thing they say is that he came to believe, however, that there are some innate ideas, right? That there are some ideas that are just appear with such clarity in the mind that they must be innate. I don't know how you go from I think, therefore I am to, oh, well, this is an innate idea. Well, what if I doubt it? But I don't, anyway. So he said that there are certain innate ideas that are present from birth. And I guess if you think about them a little bit differently, maybe it's not too bizarre. He just argues that perhaps some of the ways we interpret experiences must be innate, right? If I try to think of it like that, it starts making a little more sense to me. But anyway, so innate ideas exist, he thought, and basically, they mention in there too. He liked to just follow his intuition. So that was the process by which he thought you could arrive at clear and distinct ideas. I guess just let it flow, and I guess he would think that would help eliminate bias or whatever. Don't double think it, just follow the intuition. So that is a little odd to me too. But anyway, and they do mention here, of course, he can be considered a phenomenologist, right? A phenomenologist is someone who tries to study, conscious experience as it takes place, right? So someone who studies intact conscious experience. So he's following his intuition, or in a way, they say kind of at the end of the chapter, introspection to a certain extent, which of course was a method used by some early psychologists, right, to introspect. So anyway, there's that stuff. Now, he was the first person to describe the reflex, right? The first person to describe the reflex. So that's a big deal. Yeah. Now, the underlying mechanisms of the reflex, he got wrong, but he was the first to describe the reflex anyway. Stimulus response, right? So once again, at the end of Descartes, they say that's another thing that was influential in psychology, that he can be thought of as the first stimulus response psychologist, or perhaps even the individual that began, the behaviorist point of view, that a lot of human behavior is just reflexive, it's just automatic, right? Well, that's kind of behaviorism to a certain extent, although it's not quite there. But anyway, he starts these ideas. So he thought, he dissected human cadavers and animals. So he's doing that. He of course, in the brain, we have these open ventricles in the brain. They're called ventricles. These open areas in the brain that have cerebrospinal fluid in them. All right. He thought that you can identify the nerves, right? Now, of course, we knew nothing back then, about nerves and neurons and that sort of thing, right? There's no knowledge about these things. And some of his motivation here for describing the reflex, his explanation comes from the technology of the day, because he went and saw these statues in the gardens of the king, where water pressure inside the statue would make the statue move, right? And so he's using that as his basis for his explanation of the reflex. So we have the cerebrospinal fluid up here in the ventricles, although he called it animal spirits. This fluid was animal spirits. And there were, he thought, very taut strings inside our nerves. So when a stimulus, stimulated my finger, that would pull the string. That string would open up a space up here and let an animal spirit flow into the body and have the correct reflexive response. All right? So that's kind of the gist of his explanation of what he believed underlied the reflex. All right? What he thought underlied the reflex. Of course, he's completely wrong about the underlying mechanisms, but he's the first, nevertheless, to describe the reflex. And he argued that all animal behavior is reflexive. All of it. Right? And then he argued most of human behavior is reflexive, but not all of it. Right? Because we humans are special. The mind can influence the body in us, but just us. Right? And so this takes us to the mind-body question. And the interaction of the mind and body, that sort of stuff. So you can label Descartes as a dualist. He believed that we do have a physical body and an immaterial mind, right? So we have a body and we have a soul. He believed that. So he's a dualist. He's also an interactionist, and he thought that the mind and the body interact in some way. Now, the particular way that they interact is what's unique to what he proposed, and so his proposal or solution of this mind-body problem is often called Cartesian dualism, right? Cartesian dualism. So he thought we do have a mind, we do have a body, they do interact, but it's a one-way street. The mind can influence the body, not the other way around. All right. So most human behavior is just reflexive, stimulus response. Stimulus. That's what most behavior is. All behavior in animals is like that. Most human behavior is like that. But the mind can intervene and tell the body to do stuff, though, and it does do that from time to time, right? So the mind-body interaction is a one-way street from the mind to the body. And so basically, what else do I want to say about that? I guess that's it about that. So anyway, he did these dissections of animals and humans, and so he thought he saw a structure in humans, and he failed to see that structure in animals. So he thought, that's the mechanism through which the mind can influence the body, right? So he was wrong on that. Unfortunately, animals have that too. He just missed it. But anyway, right? So the details of what he's saying here are wrong. But heck, come on. He's the first to be looking at this stuff and trying to explain it, you know? So anyway, that's the mind-body question. They do also mention in there, that he has an explanation for sleep and dreams. Kind of you have these taut, really tight, strings inside our nerves. And, throughout the day, they begin to weaken, right? And so we become less responsive to external stimuli as a result of that. And so at some point, we go to sleep. That's when we're just not responsive to external stimuli anymore when we go to sleep. And when we go to sleep, some of these animal spirits in the ventricles leak out into the body and create the dream, right? And there's some talk about, I guess with Descartes, about you've got the animal part of us, the instincts, all that kind of stuff, right? Versus the mind bit, right? Which is more rational and can, from time to time, tell the body what to do. So also at the end of Descartes here, they say that this kind of conflict between the body and the mind might kind of anticipate Freud a little bit too, in some of that. What else do I want to say here? Well, yeah, and so specifically, since he dissected humans and animals, they also throw in the fact that he might be considered kind of the individual who gave birth to modern physiological and comparative psychology as well. Even though some of his observations were inaccurate, we know better today. But anyway, so yeah, he got in some trouble with the church too. Right, he's in France, right, a Catholic country, and the Catholic Church put a bunch of his works on the banned list, and burned them or destroyed them. I guess they probably didn't burn them. I don't know, maybe they did. But anyway, so he had to be careful. He stopped writing and kept mostly into personal communications with others, and I think that's. About it for Descartes. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing with Bacon. Oh, it just popped into my head. So the earlier video with Bacon, Francis Bacon, not delicious bacon, but Francis Bacon. Towards the end of his life, he was doing an experimentation with freezing food. So he was trying to freeze chicken to see how well it could be preserved if it was frozen, and it's thought that that's how Bacon caught pneumonia and died. so for your frozen chicken dinner, just thank God that Bacon sacrificed himself for our frozen dinners. Good luck on the test. Don't forget the test is when? It's tomorrow. Don't forget that. All right, it's tomorrow. Study, study, study. And good luck.